The salt spray felt like a personal insult. Dr. Elias Thorne gripped the rail of the rented trawler, knuckles white. The Pacific gnawed at the hull, a cold, indifferent beast. Ahead, shrouded in the pre-dawn gloom, lay Aethelred Island, a 2-square-mile teardrop of volcanic rock and patented silence. And on it, the Elysium Clinic. Elias tasted bile. 3 years ago, he'd been bioethics keynote speaker. Now, he was a disgraced scientist, disbarred, living in a Seattle shoebox, his nights fueled by cheap whiskey and the rhythmic times thwack, thwack, thwack times of his fists against a heavy bag. Omnicorp had seen to his ruin. He'd tried to expose their illegal human trials in tissue regeneration. They'd buried him in lawsuits, branded him a fanatic, and broken his career. He was a man of logic, a man who believed in rules, in data, in the sweet science of a clean counterpunch. He was not a man who believed in miracles, which was why Elysium terrified him. Lena, his sister, was all he had left. She was the one who believed in him when no one else did, and she was dying. Kalman degeneration *. A 1 in a million neurodegenerative nightmare that was slowly, cruelly turning her brilliant mind and vibrant body into a prison. When her anonymous benefactor had arranged for her experimental treatment at Elysium, Elias had protested. The place was a black box, a luxury spa for the terminally wealthy, run by the elusive doctor, Aris Kaelen. Its recovery rates were not just good, they were times impossible *. Then the calls had stopped. 2 days ago, the package had arrived. A cheap, disposable tablet. No return address. On it, a single video file, corrupted, time-stamped from Lena's private suite. He watched it again, for the 20th time, huddled against the wind. The footage was grainy, the audio a low hum. Lena, pale and frail in a sterile white bed. Then, the convulsion. It wasn't a seizure. It was a times rejection *. Her body arched, a silent scream frozen on her face. And her skin. God, her skin. It times rippled *. Not like a muscle spasm. It flowed, like a tide of snakes moving just beneath the dermis. A nurse in a crisp, white uniform entered the frame. She didn't rush to Lena. She didn't check her vitals. She scanned the room, her eyes landing directly on the hidden security cam. Her expression was not one of concern, it was annoyance. She moved toward the camera, her face filling the view. And for a split second, before she struck the lens, Elias saw her eyes. The pupils were horizontally slit, like a goat's. The screen went to static. The trawler's engine died, pulling Elias from the memory. "This is as far as I go, pal," the skipper grunted, not looking at him. "Service dock is on the north side. You get caught, I don't know you." Elias threw a wad of cash onto the console. He slung his waterproof duffel containing a climbing harness, a med kit, and a heavy-duty bolt cutter over his shoulder. I was never here. He leaped onto the slick concrete of the service dock. The air was dead. No gulls, no harbor seals. Just the hum. A low-frequency electronic vibration that seemed to soak into his bones. Elysium was clean, offensively so. The white concrete walls of the service entrance were scrubbed, the air smelling of ozone and antiseptic. Everything was controlled, monitored, curated by Aura, the clinic's omnipresent AI, whose soft, synthesized voice was the only sound. Asterisk is less than "welcome visitor. Your presence is unauthorized. Please remain stationary for security processing." Is greater than asterisk. Elias didn't. He jammed a military-grade scrambler against the nearest keypad. The lock sparked, groaned, and clicked open. He was in. He moved fast, sticking to the shadows of the immaculate white corridors. His target was the patient wing, then the central records office. He had to find Lena. Doc? Dr. Thorne. Elias spun, dropping into a boxer's crouch. A man in a gray security uniform stood 10 yards down the hall, hands raised, palms open. He was built like a linebacker, but his face was pale, glistening with sweat. Don't, the guard whispered, his voice shaking. They'll hear you. The mics are everywhere. He pointed to a small, almost invisible grate near the ceiling. Who are you? Elias hissed, not relaxing his stance. Name's Silas. I'm the one who sent you the tablet. He stepped closer, and Elias could see the terror in his eyes. You gotta get her out of here, man. You gotta get your sister, and time's run asterisk. Logic warred with desperation. A plant? How do I know I can trust you? That video? That was times after times the first treatment. Silas wiped his face. You should see the ones who've had the times third asterisk. I got a family, Doc. I just wanted a paycheck. I didn't sign up for times this asterisk. He slid a keycard across the polished floor. This gets you into the patient wing and the old records office. Your sister. She's not in her room. Kaelen moved her. I think he moved her to the East Wing. Why the East Wing? Silas wouldn't meet his eyes. That's where they keep the mistakes, Doc. The ones who didn't take the treatment well. But Kaelen, he doesn't call them mistakes. He calls them Phase 2. He pointed down the hall. Records office is that way. I'll cover the cameras on this loop for 10 minutes. Find her location, then get to the sub-level. The boat docks. I'll meet you there. Go. Silas vanished back the way he came. Elias was a skeptic. He distrusted everything. But the fear in Silas's eyes, that was real. He grabbed the card and ran. The records office was a ghost town. AURA's voice followed him, calm and unsettling. Asterisk is less than. This area is restricted. Security has been notified. Is greater than asterisk. Shut up, Elias muttered, sliding the card. The door opened. He found Lena's file. Transferred, just as Silas said. But not to the East Wing. Subject, Lena Thorne. Status, Prime Candidate. Transferred to Sub-Level Biolab. Project, Asterisk Chrysalis Asterisk. Elias's blood ran cold. Asterisk Chrysalis Asterisk. A term for transformation. He had to get to the sub-level. But first, he had to pass the East Wing. He exited the office and made his way toward the industrial-grade elevators when he heard it. A wet asterisk clicking time sound, like chitin on tile. He ducked into an alcove as a gurney rolled past, pushed by 2 orderlies. But it wasn't the orderlies that held his attention. It was the patient strapped to the gurney. It had times been a woman. Now, it was a tapestry of body horror. Her skin was a translucent, waxy white, sloughing off in wet sheets, only to regenerate in real time beneath. Her head was turned at an impossible angle, neck clearly broken, yet her eyes were wide, alert, and tracking. One of her arms had been severed, and from the stump, asterisk 3 times new, smaller arms were budding, writhing like a knot of starfish limbs. As the gurney passed, the woman's head swiveled 180 degrees to look directly at him. She opened her mouth to scream, but the only sound was the wet insectoid. Asterisk. Click, 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 asterisk. Elias clamped a hand over his own mouth, fighting the urge to vomit. This wasn't healing. This was violation. He knew Kaelen's work. He'd read his early papers, back before Kaelen had gone dark. Aris Kaelen wasn't a doctor. He was a genetic architect, a genius who believed the human genome was a flawed, First draft. He wasn't times curing times disease. He was times replacing times the host. He was splicing human DNA with the immortal times teratopsis, Dorney times the immortal jellyfish, and the regenerative times asteroidea times the starfish. He wasn't trying to save humanity. He was trying to render it obsolete. Elias bypassed the elevator, sprinting for the stairwell. The sterile white walls were now a terrifying facade. The entire clinic was a laboratory. The patients weren't recovering. They were times gestating asterisk. The stairwell door burst open, and Elias collided with a nurse. It was the same one from the video. Unauthorized, she hissed. Her voice was guttural, layered, as if three people were speaking at once. Elias, acting on pure boxer's instinct, threw a jab. His fist connected with her jaw. He felt the bone crunch. She didn't even blink. She tilted her head, and he heard the snap times of her jawbone resetting. Her horizontally slit pupils dilated. Hostile, she rasped. She lunged. She was impossibly fast. Her fingers, hard as ceramic, dug into his shoulder. Elias roared, slamming his elbow into her solar plexus. It was like hitting concrete. She drove him back against the wall, her other hand reaching for his face, her fingernails elongating into yellowed, chitinous-looking claws. Elias saw the fire extinguisher on the wall. He grabbed it, ripped it from its mooring, and brought it down on her head with all his strength. The metal case times crushed, times her skull. A normal person would be dead. She stumbled back, a dent where her forehead should be. And then, horribly, the dent began to times undent asterisk. Flesh and bone times flowed times like hot wax, reforming. The only thing faster than the regeneration was her rage. She shrieked that same layered, clicking wail and charged. Elias didn't try to fight. He kicked a gurney into her path and bolted. He slammed through the door to the east wing, Silas's place of mistakes, and mashed the button to lock it behind him. He heard the nurse's body slam against the reinforced steel. He was safe. For a second. Then he realized where he was. The east wing was not white and sterile. It was dark, damp, and smelled of ammonia and spoiled meat. The lights were shattered. Aura's voice was absent here. This was the dungeon. Asterisk is less than click. Click is greater than asterisk. The sound was coming from the ceiling. Elias looked up. In the gloom, he saw them. The mistakes. Phase 2. They were clinging to the ceiling, to the walls, like spiders. They were skeletal, their bodies elongated, their joints bending the wrong way. One. A man in the tattered remains of a silk pajama scuttled across the ceiling, his spine fused into a permanent, agonizing arch. His skin sloughed off in ribbons, revealing a pale, rubbery new layer beneath. They weren't in pain. They were times post-pain asterisk. Elias backed away slowly. He was a man of logic. Logic dictated that he was surrounded, outmatched, and about to die. One of them dropped to the floor. It landed in a 4-point crouch, its head snapping to face him. Its jaw was gone, replaced by a hardened beak-like mandible that clicked open and shut. "Run," Elias whispered to himself. He ran. The patients swarmed. They moved with a jerky stop-motion camera grace that was utterly unnatural. He slammed one with a right hook. His fist went times through times its chest cavity, which was filled with a gelatinous gray fluid. The patient just clicked and grabbed his arm. Elias ripped his hand free, covered in gore, and vaulted over a patient lounge bar. He threw a bottle of scotch. It shattered on a patient's face. The creature simply wiped the glass from its eyes that were now multifaceted, like a flies, and kept coming. They weren't alive. They were Time's animated asterisk. He saw an elevator at the end of the hall. Sub-level access. He sprinted. The patients were right behind him, their clicking growing into a chorus. He hit the button, the door opened, and he dove inside, slamming the close button. An arm, a pale waxy arm, with fingers in the wrong places shoved through the closing door. Elias stomped on it. The bone shattered with a wet Times pop asterisk. The arm didn't retract. It Times detached asterisk, writhing on the elevator floor like a severed starfish limb. The doors sealed. The elevator descended, plunging Elias into a pressurized, sterile silence. His heart was a drum against his ribs. He was covered in sweat and God knows what else. He looked at the dismembered arm on the floor. It was still twitching. The doors opened. He was in the sub-level biolab. It was a cathedral of cold, white science. Glass walls, chrome steel, and the hum of massive servers. In the center of the room, lit by a single-focused beam of light, was a large, cylindrical biotank. And inside, floating in a pale green amniotic fluid, was Lena. She was intubated, her body connected by a dozen tubes to the humming machinery. Her skin was pale, translucent. He could almost see her skeleton. But she was alive. She was Time's whole asterisk. "Elias," she whispered, her voice bubbling through the fluid, transmitted by a speaker. "Lena, I'm here. I'm getting you out." He ran to the tank, looking for a release. "No, Elias, it's a trap." A slow clap echoed from the observation booth above. "Bravo, Dr. Thorne." Dr. Aris Kaelen emerged from the shadows. He wasn't a monster. He was just a man. Small, impeccably dressed in a linen suit, with the calm, passive face of a bored aristocrat. "I must confess, I didn't expect you to make it past the East Wing," Kaelen said, his voice amplified by the PA. "My failures are so terribly impolite. But then, you always did punch above your weight, didn't you?" "Kaelen! You sick bastard! Let her go!" Elias slammed his fist on the glass tank. "Let her go? I'm Time's saving Time's her." Kaelen descended a spiral staircase, walking with unhurried arrogance. "The human body is a failed experiment, Elias. A sloppy, fragile, temporary vessel of meat, destined to rot. Your sister was rotting. I am offering the correction." "You call this a correction?" Elias jested wildly. "Those Times things Time's upstairs? Growing pains," Kaelen snapped, his calm facade cracking for a second. "Crude prototypes. You, *U Times were the missing piece. Your research on cellular-level enzyme failsafes. It was the key to stabilizing the DNA splice. My subjects are now immortal, regenerative, perfect. They're abominations. They are the Time's future asterisk," Kaelen said, stopping 10 feet away. "And your sister, she will be the first of the new perfect breed. Project Chrysalis. No disease, no aging, no death, just change." The lab door hissed open. Elias spun, expecting more. Patience. It was Silas. He held a high-powered cattle prod. "Silas, thank God," Elias breathed. "Help me. We have to stop him. We have to get her out." Silas looked at Elias. He looked at Kaelen. Then he looked at Lena in the tank. "He's right, Doc," Silas said, his voice flat. "What?" "Kaelen, he's right." Silas stepped to Kaelen's side. "You're too late." "Silas, you sent the video," Elias said, the horrible truth dawning on him. "You said you were scared." "Oh, I was," Silas said. Scared this blockhead. He gestured to Kaelen. Wouldn't get the formula right. The East Wing? That's what happens when the splice isn't stable. But you, Doc, all your research, it fixed me. Silas had a deep gash on his arm, from the gurney Elias had thrown in the hallway. Elias had seen it. Now, he watched, mesmerized, as the gash times didn't bleed asterisk. The flesh times knitted asterisk. It pulled together, sealing itself with a pale, rubbery, scarless tissue. The video wasn't a warning, Elias, Kaelen said, smiling. It was times bait asterisk. We needed you. Needed me? Oh, not for your mind, Silas sneered. We've already picked that clean. No, we needed your genes. He tapped the cattle prod against his hand. Healthy stock. Strong. Resilient. You're not a rescuer, Doc. You're the next host. The twist was so complete, so perfect, Elias could only laugh. A short, bark-like sound of despair. You won't take me, Elias said, dropping into his stance. And I'm taking my sister. Ah, the boxer. Kaelen sighed. Silas, secure the asset. And try not to break him times 2 times much. We need the cellular structure intact. Silas charged. He was fast, but Elias was a technician. He dodged the prod, slipping inside Silas's guard, and delivered a perfect 3-punch combination. Asterisk, jab, cross, hook, asterisk. The hook connected with Silas's temple with a sound like a bat hitting a side of beef. Silas just grunted. He grabbed Elias by the throat, lifting him off the floor. His grip was inhuman. My turn, Silas whispered, and his arm changed. It wasn't fast. It was slow, deliberate, and times wet asterisk. His skin split open, not from a wound, but from a times hatching asterisk. Pale chitinous plates unfolded, and his forearm elongated, the bones cracking and reforming, sprouting barbed, tentacle-like appendages that wrapped around Elias's neck. Elias gagged, his logical mind screaming at the impossibility, his lungs burning. This is the new dawn, Doctor, Kaelen said, watching with academic interest. Elias was losing. He was a scientist, a boxer. He was fighting a monster, asterisk. A scientist, asterisk. His eyes blurring, scanned the lab. He was surrounded by Kaelen's work, asterisk. His time's work. Kaelen's voice, asterisk. Your research. Enzyme failsafes. Stabilizing the DNA splice. Asterisk. He knew, in that instant, how to win. The patients upstairs were unstable. Silas was stable. Lena was, in process. But the core technology, the splice, was based on his own time's abandoned protocols. And he had always times built a kill switch. His gaze locked on a refrigerated storage unit. Label, asterisk E-enzyme substrate, TL7. Thorne Protocol. For emergency containment only. Asterisk trypsine L7. His own creation. An enzyme designed to target and times aggressively break down non-human protein chains, like, say, those from a jellyfish. It wasn't a reversal agent. It was a dissolving times agent. With a final desperate burst of strength, Elias drove his feet into Silas's chest, breaking the grip. He fell, rolled, and sprinted for the storage unit. Stop him! Kaelen shrieked, his composure finally breaking. Silas lunged, his monstrous arms sweeping across a lab table, sending equipment flying. At the same time, Kaelen hit a button. Security! Containment breach! All subjects to the sublab! The elevator door across the room opened. The times clicking times began. The patients, the failures from the East Wing, flooded the lab. A tide of broken, regenerating, insectoid horrors. They were between Elias and the storage unit. Silas laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. "It's over, Thorne. You're just meat." Elias. He looked at the horde. He looked at Silas. He looked at Lena, floating, her eyes pleading. He wasn't a hero. He was just a brother. He grabbed a heavy-duty centrifuge from a bench. "Hey, Kaelen!" he yelled. Kaelen looked up at the observation booth. Elias hurled the centrifuge at the glass. The booth shattered. Kaelen screamed as the heavy machinery crushed the console, which exploded in a shower of sparks. The PA system died. The patients, drawn by the noise, swarmed the base of the staircase, a writhing mass of broken limbs and clicking mandibles. The diversion. Elias ran. He vaulted the counter, grabbed the large metal canister of trypsin L7 and tore it from its housing. Silas was on him. The tentacle arm slammed into his side, cracking ribs. Elias screamed, but held onto the canister. "You're just delaying the inevitable!" Silas roared, raising his arm for a final killing blow. "You're right," Elias gasped, spitting blood. "This isn't healing." He smashed the canister onto the ground floor. "This is pest control." At the same time, he grabbed a fallen power line from the broken console and shoved it into the sprinkler hub on the wall. The fire suppression system engaged. Water. Everywhere. The sprinklers drenched the room, mixing instantly with the aerosolized cloud of pressurized, concentrated TL7 enzyme. It was a rain of death. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, Silas Times screamed asterisk. It was not a sound of rage. It was a sound of Time's dissolution asterisk. He looked down at his tentacle arm. The chitin was dissolving. The pale flesh was sloughing off, not regenerating, but Time's liquefying asterisk. The immortal jellyfish DNA, the starfish regeneration. The enzyme was tearing it apart at a cellular level. It was a cascade of catastrophic biological failure. Silas fell to his knees, his perfect body melting into a protoplasmic ruin. "No, Kaelen, it hurts. It times hurts asterisk." Across the lab, the patients were suffering the same fate. Their unstable bodies had no defense. They collapsed, their forms dissolving. A symphony of wet, tearing sounds. They weren't just dying. They were Time's unmaking asterisk. Elias, shielded by his rain-soaked jacket, watched the body horror apocalypse he had unleashed. Asterisk is less than warning. Containment failure detected. Biopurification protocol engaged. Facility self-destruction in T-minus 10 minutes. Is greater than asterisk aura was back online. Elias ignored the pain in his ribs. He ran to Lena's tank. He found the emergency drain. The green fluid rushed out. Lena collapsed to the bottom of the tank. He smashed the glass with the empty canister and pulled her out. She was freezing, but she was breathing. The process had been interrupted. He found a diagnostic tray. He knew his own research. He grabbed a syringe of the counter enzyme, the Times stabilizer times, and plunged it into her heart. "Come on, Lena. Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered. "Elias." Cold. "I know. We're going home." He looked up. Kaelen was crawling from the wreckage of the booth, his leg broken. He saw Elias. He saw the melting remains of his perfect creations. His face was a mask of pure, intellectual hatred. You ruined it," he shrieked. "You ruined Time's everything, asterisk. Asterisk is less than T-minus 5 minutes. Is greater than asterisk. You wanted to replace us, Aris," Elias said, lifting his sister into his arms. "You just weren't good enough." Elias ran for the emergency exit, the one that led to the service docks. He didn't look back. He burst out into the night air, the salt spray a welcome relief from the reek of ozone and dissolved flesh. The rented trawler was gone, as expected, but a clinic maintenance boat was tied to the dock. Asterisk is less than T-1 minute, is greater than asterisk. He laid Lena in the boat, cut the ropes, and jammed the engine. It roared to life. As they sped away from the island, the sun, that glorious, normal, unspliced sun, began to break the horizon. Asterisk is less than biopurification engaged. Goodbye. Is greater than asterisk. The Elysium Clinic did not explode in a fireball. That would have been too messy. It imploded. A flash of white-hot, sterile light. And the entire facility, from the penthouse to the sublab, was incinerated, collapsing in on itself in a cloud of superheated steam. Elias wrapped a thermal blanket around Lena. Her skin was still too pale, her pupils still a little off. But she was his sister. She was human. "Elias?" she whispered, her voice weak. He gripped her hand, the roar of the boat engine the only sound, and pointed them toward the mainland. "I'm here. Lena, I'm here." He looked back one last time at the boiling empty patch of ocean where the island had been. He was a man of logic, and logic told him that he hadn't just saved his sister. He had saved the Times world from Kaelen's. But as he felt the throb of his broken ribs, he knew, with chilling certainty, that the idea of replacement, the hubris of science, had not died with Kaelen. Elysium was gone, but the nightmare was just beginning.